In a game that Oklahoma desperately needed to have, they found a way to win in Ames, 27-13 over the Iowa State Cyclones. Welcome into Oklahoma Postgame Live at the Voice of College Football. My name is Jason Ray, taking you over the next 30-45 minutes for our official postgame for Oklahoma Sooners football. So, as I mentioned, Oklahoma wins the game 27-13. Please hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you know exactly when we go live after these games. Typically, it's a few minutes after the game's over, depending on the length and everything like that, and getting set up. But yeah, as we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, heading into this game, this is a game that we thought that had a chance to be somewhat lower scoring with the way that Iowa State plays, specifically has played this year, um, specifically just in terms of how they win is playing close games, playing very fewer possession games, holding the opponents to a low score as the leading defense in the Big 12 thus far through the season. But um, in a game that was really bizarre. I think just in a lot of ways, with the 27-13 um, win for Oklahoma. Obviously, part of that was on the last couple of drives where Iowa State was able to what really needed to throw the ball a lot. Hunter Deckers just kind of got through for 312 yards, one touchdown, but the key three interceptions that really was the difference in the game. To be honest, on particularly that interception late that Danny Stussman brought back to the 1 or the 2 yard line that Eric Gray was able to cap off for a touchdown to make the game out of reach, so to speak, at that point. In a lot of ways, this game kind of went the way I expected it to, from an Oklahoma offense perspective, right? I mean, I thought Iowa State was going to limit possessions, try to keep Oklahoma's offense off the field as much as possible. Scored 27 points. That was about where I thought Oklahoma would be, somewhere in the 24-31 range, somewhere in that neighborhood. I thought if they played just exceptionally well on offense, maybe Oklahoma could get into the 30s or the mid 30s. But about what I thought, just based on the way Iowa State likes to play. Um, when you look at this, when you go down and look at the stats offensively, it's not incredibly impressive, particularly through the air. 15 for 20. Dylan Gabriel is 15 for 26 for 148 yards, that one touchdown, and no interceptions. The one touchdown to Jalil Farouk there in the third quarter. Um, Running the ball, Oklahoma was actually really good running the ball in the first half. Not quite as much in the second half. Um, Obviously, Eric Gray was out for a good portion of particularly the third and early on in the fourth quarter with a kind of dealing with a lower leg injury. But obviously, we saw him got back in and had that wildcat touchdown run. But 18 carries for 89 yards for him overall, 182 yards on the ground. Um, in the game that had really almost had everything. Had a lot of turnovers. Had a special teams touchdown for Oklahoma. Had Michael Turk just really punted well. Probably his best game of the year this year, just in terms of punting. Had a long of 61, averaged 49.3 yards per punt, so really well. A couple of field goals by Zach Schmidt. Obviously, the special teams touchdown, which was a really good call early on in the game. I think right there to take a little bit of the momentum and the crowd out of the game, so to speak. For Oklahoma. Jalil Fruit led the way for Oklahoma, 4 catches for 74 yards. Drake Stoops 3 for 34. Marvin Mims really just not quite sure had a couple of drops. Just probably was a little bit frustrated they weren't able to connect on any of those long balls. But just a very atypical performance from Marvin Mims. Just wasn't didn't seem to be didn't couldn't get into the flow of the game, so to speak. So offensively, not quite as good of a performance as you would expect. But given exactly how good Iowa State's defense has been throughout this year, not just a terrible performance. Um, they held Texas to 31. They lost, held Kansas State to 10, held Kansas to 15, I believe. So all in all, on the road, not necessarily a great game, but just okay on the offensive side of the ball. Nothing necessarily bad that I saw, but couldn't run the ball as well. I mean, I think not having Javante Barnes and who's clearly to me kind of taking over that RB2 spot for Oklahoma. Um, and not having him, he was out due to a sickness, from what I've heard, and so he wasn't available. Didn't even make the trip, from what I understand. So uh, Oklahoma, didn't have him, and Marcus Majors just probably not quite the same back uh, that Javante Barnes is, but still, offensively, you did enough to win. And I think for me, and I think probably most of you that have watched this team over the years, and particularly this year, was very um, pleasantly surprised at how well the defense played. Yes, I take that with a grain of salt going forward, knowing that this is probably, well, not probably, the worst offense in the Big 12 points wise, statistically coming into this game. But still, as a defense, you have to go out and do it. And what I saw today was, obviously you didn't see any busts in the secondary, which is good. A lot better tackling, a lot better rallying to the football for Oklahoma. Got in, was in good position defensively. No pass interference penalties that I can remember. Very few penalties overall in the game. I was trying to look at that while we were talking. 4 for 30 for Oklahoma, 3 for 21 for Iowa State. Oklahoma was in position, a lot in this game today, just, in position to, um, in position to make plays defensively. The 3 interceptions was a season high for Oklahoma in this game. A couple of them were just really bad passes by Deckers, but then I thought the Stutzman interception was really good play by him, who's been a little bit up and down over the last couple of weeks as the total defense has. Right, but I think Oklahoma was really good from a run defense perspective. Only gave up 66 yards, 2.44 yards per rush for Iowa State, and there was the rubber was going to meet the road, so to speak, in this game for Oklahoma. Right, as well, not necessarily just for Oklahoma, just in the game specifically. I think Oklahoma came into the game with the worst rushing defense in the league. Iowa State came into the game with the worst rushing offense in the league right now. So, seeing that as it was, it's kind of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, kind of in an opposite direction there, right? But Oklahoma got the better end of that deal with only 66 yards. As I mentioned, Iowa State threw for over 300 yards, but they did so on 57 attempts, so 5.5 yards per pass. I think you'll deal with that, and you'll work with that. Anytime you can hold a team to 13 points, I think is a really solid defensive performance, and especially with this defense, they've got they put Oklahoma in a position to win this game, obviously. And so much better all the way around. Like I said, I do say that with a grain of salt. That Deck agree with your comment here, Sooner Thrown, that he looked really bad for the moment for most of the game. And I thought the game plan and particularly in the third and fourth quarter, when it was pretty clear Iowa State was not going to be able to get much done running the football. Um, I thought that Iowa State would open it up a little bit. You've got one of the best wide receivers in the country and Xavier Hutchinson on your team, and really just couldn't get the ball to him consistently. I think he had 8 catches for 60 something yards. So Oklahoma held him down pretty well in this game. So um, yeah, I mean, you're happy. Obviously, it gets you one step closer to a potential bowl game. You've got four. I know that no one actually in that locker room actually looks at it like this. I think obviously the goal, win four straight, get to 9 wins, and see where you're at. But you can see some things getting better on the defensive side of the ball. I think the one thing that at least me, that I worried about was this team, possibly not giving the same amount of effort, but you could see getting some guys healthy helped on the defensive side of the ball, but then rallying to the football and really just playing good team defense. For the majority of the day, real, the only real negative came when Iowa State got a couple of fourth down conversions on that touchdown drive late there in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. Then the momentum was swinging. Right, Oklahoma had a third and out on offense, and then they went to relied on their defense to play well, and they did, and that's when they got that interception and just the, making the momentum clearly swing to Oklahoma's favor. So, Oklahoma moves to 5-3 on the season. You look ahead to you go back home and you face Baylor, a team that I think probably notwithstanding this game, I think you look like it looks like two of the teams that most people thought had a really good chance to get to the Big 12 championship game, but both teams are really on the outside looking in right now. So it'll be interesting to see, how that goes through the rest of this Big 12 season. But yeah, big game for Oklahoma Norman to get bowl eligible. Baylor plays later today on the road. Let me look at my schedule here. Um, Baylor goes to Texas Tech tonight, 6:30 p.m. on ESPN2. So that'll be a very interesting matchup for Baylor because Texas Tech has been really good at home. They completely dominated um, West Virginia last week. So, um, yeah, both teams, not necessarily as good as they thought they would be coming into the season, but they, have an opportunity to get back and get some confidence in the back half of the season, and then, who knows, who knows what could happen. Oklahoma, gets a little momentum. If they can beat Baylor here, then they get a couple of you know 3 straight wins in the Big 12, and you have a lot of confidence, and you can see where you can go from there. Um, moving forward 2-3 in conference right now, and so you just you take the positives. And I think a couple of games ago, a lot of us thought this team may not be possible for this team to make it to a Big 12 or make it to a bowl game, I should say, let alone kind of get back in this Big 12 race. So looks like TCU has a very huge lead, and they just scored to go up 41-31 over West Virginia. So they'll go to 8-0 overall, 5-0 in the Big 12, and have really just a stranglehold on the top spot with Oklahoma State and Kansas State going at it today. But both of those schools 3-1, and so if you're TCU, you got like a three game lead on the loser of that game. Um, and then at least still essentially a 2-game lead. So it would have to be a pretty sizable upset here, and just kind of an epic collapse for TCU not to make it to the Big 12 championship game. But then you've got a couple of others here. Will be interesting to see how this Oklahoma State Kansas State team our game goes, and obviously the winner has has a decided edge there, and in meeting TCU. Again, I think this year the Big 12 a um, doesn't necessarily have a dominant team. Doesn't have a playoff or a national championship caliber team. TCU is just one of those interesting teams. They just seem to find ways to win. They've struggled in their last 3 games, coming from behind in 2 of those 3 games, and just finding a way to win those games. When particularly against Oklahoma State a couple of weeks ago, down 16 in the third in the second half, and even the fourth quarter to a certain degree, and then last week going down big to Kansas State, and then marching back, and got that 41, like I said, got that 41-31 win today over West Virginia. So then you got, like I said, Oklahoma State, and that's the only other game, and then Baylor and Texas Tech later on today for our action. So good day of college football still to go. Kind of went as I've been here on live. This game kind of went crazy in the fourth quarter. Um, it was like a 16-14 Ohio State lead, kind of a low scoring game, and then both offenses has just went nuts in the fourth quarter. Penn State just scored a touchdown, but Ohio State had it up to 44-24, 44-31, as we speak right now, for in favor of Ohio State. Florida, Georgia is just kicking off. We've talked a little bit about Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Kansas State looks like they on their first drive, they're going to have to punt 4th and 10 at the Oklahoma State 38-yard line. It looks like Adrian Martinez is not playing. Will Howard got the start for Kansas State. So I give Oklahoma State a little bit of advantage right there with Adrian Martinez not being there. So thanks, Ron, for this. Yeah, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, hit that notification bell. Make sure you share this with people. So specifically Oklahoma people that are obviously very interested in seeing what Oklahoma has going against them from a Baylor perspective will want to make sure that they tune into ESPN2 tonight at 6:30 to watch Baylor and Texas Tech battle it out. As I mentioned, it looked like it was going to be a 3-and-out. Kansas State actually scored on 4th down play, I believe it was. So they scored a touchdown on a 38-yard touchdown pass from Will Howard. So 7-0 Kansas State early on. So that's one to keep an eye on for the Big 12 as well. Illinois, who's all the way up to number 17 in the country, they've got an early 7-0 lead over Nebraska in Lincoln. So a lot of good football still remaining for the day here. I think, yeah, Ohio State's got the ball. Looks like they're gonna probably just run out the clock here. Penn State's got a couple of timeouts left, but it looks like they have kind of solidified themselves here at the last part of this first half. So let me know what questions, comments, if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about in terms of Oklahoma today, and moving forward in the Big 12. So confidence is an interesting thing. You win a couple of games, even if it's not incredibly impressive at all. You have a team that's won a couple of games in a row, has got some confidence, and then you're coming back home against a really good team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball in Baylor. So should be an interesting week of practice, and should be a pretty big game for both of these teams in a different way, but still a big game regardless. So Ron, I don't cover high school football much. I watch it. I mean, when I say cover, I follow it, but I don't. Um, as I've mentioned to a lot of you guys, I coach high school basketball, so I'm pretty, busy in the evenings watching, or practicing and having games and stuff like that. But I think that the interesting story here, when you look at 6A, on the 6A side for the state of Oklahoma, again, Bixby is dominating, continues to dominate. And I think they scored 64 points against Moore, maybe 63 or 64. Won that game 63-7. And then it looks like Bixby and Tulsa Union is on the collision course at 6A1. 5A Coweta. It looks like them and Del City are right there. But yeah, I follow it a decent amount as well. Um, Jay Morris. I love the defense in the first three quarters. Yeah, they played pretty well. There's a couple of drives, or not a couple of plays there in that touchdown drive, that that had a little bit cause for some concern, specifically on long fourth down plays. But other than that, I thought the defense played really well. Um, Yeah, I hope he can too, sooner than. It was just a very atypical game for him. It always happens. There's always some times where kids just don't have great games. It's hard. It's hard at the end. Or I'm sorry, I was looking at another comment that said it's hard to consistently play at a high level. Um, this this year, but again, he has played really well, for the most part. Just did not have um just did not have anywhere near his best game. Ron, I don't think so. Bixby's just playing at such a high level. They've won, and I don't remember, it's 50 plus games in a row. Haven't lost a game in almost 4 years. And I think the thought was, yeah, once they move up to 6A1 from 6A2, then it will be a little bit of a different story. But it really hasn't been. Bixby has just absolutely annihilated everyone they played. I think they had 5 straight games going over 70 points, and they fell all the way back to 63. Union's probably not quite as explosive, so I still like Bixby. I think Union's the only one that can compete with them. I believe Bixby plays Jinx last game of the year, this coming Friday. To finish out the regular season before playoffs start. But yeah, I think those two teams are on a collision course to meet in the state title game. Yeah, I mean, it was actually a pretty good game. I think Coweta won 19-18 Friday night, or last night, I should say, over Dell City. But that was actually a pretty good game. Um, yeah, I had seen this on Twitter, Justin. I don't know. I'll try to see if I could find out that information for you guys, but I I don't know. I didn't. Like I said, I didn't see them. I heard that they weren't there. I don't know what the reasoning behind that was at all. So I'll see if I can find some information out. Jay Morris was Canton. No, I did not see him other than special teams. I didn't see him in the in the linebacking rotation. I think BV has a lot of confidence in the way, and both of them played pretty well today. Aguebu missed a couple of tackles, and Stutzman, but I think when you look at Deshaun, he played just incredibly well today. I thought um, he was the best defensive player on the field for Oklahoma. Deshaun White, playing that cheetah position, was in the backfield a lot, had a lot of open field tackles, just played really well. Um, Definitely. Yep. Yeah, you can absolutely say that this year, Stubby. Wins are better than losses, and especially in games like this, right? Or seasons like this, when you're not necessarily worried too terribly much about style points, and you're more winning. Just concentrate on win as a win. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chuck. 58 straight wins. I knew it was in the mid to upper 50s. I'd remembered a few games ago they hit 55, but I couldn't remember exactly how many. But yeah, they've been rolling. And I didn't go to I'm not necessarily from here. I didn't go to Bixby, but I do live in Bixby, so I've had the opportunity to see them a couple of times, and they're dynamite. They're um absolutely good. Ron Bowman shouldn't have played. Yeah, I didn't. I think they wanted to just test and see what he could do, but he clearly wasn't very effective and didn't really play a lot in that game. To your point, but yeah, Justin, our defense is getting better as the year goes on. To me, that's a good sign of coaching. I will partially agree with you, Justin. I feel like today was the first today was the first game that I actually felt like they'd gotten better. I didn't really see really any improvement um, against Kansas 2 weeks ago. He gave up 42 points in that game. That's not the standard that Oklahoma needs to live at. But yes, I agree with you. Today was very, very much a huge step in the right direction for this Oklahoma defensive team. Yeah, I mean it's very evident that Oklahoma doesn't have the players that they need from a speed perspective, and just across the defensive line, consistently to be the team that they want to be. Obviously, that will be continue to be addressed through transfer portal and through recruiting. But you've got to do what you can do with the people that you have right now. So yeah, so this is like I said, a huge step in the right direction. Um, Iowa State is a bad offensive team. There's no way around that. But you still gotta go play, and you still gotta go do it. So yeah, I agree that this week is a good sign of them getting better. Then you go play a Baylor team that is better offensively than Iowa State, certainly, but you you also it's not one of the it's not they're not one of the top offensive teams in the Big 12 without any stretch of the imagination. Oklahoma has played the best teams, offensively, I think, in the Big 12 when you look at Texas, when you look at TCU, when you look at Kansas. Obviously, Oklahoma State is a good offensive team as well. Not as good as they've been in the past, but they're still a good offensive team that'll be coming to Norman in a few weeks. Thought overall DG played well. Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah, just didn't. It was something that you kind of expected. You know what Iowa State's defense is coming into this game. Doesn't feel like it, but we handed Iowa State their biggest loss of the season so far, and at their place, take that. Yep, you have to look at the positives without a doubt. Yeah, I'd wonder that Jay Morris. No, I think he was sick. From what I understand, that he was sick, didn't make the trip. I know there's a ton of just where I'm at. There's a ton of flu and cold and stuff going on right now. Obviously, as happens when fall really kind of rears its head up. But yeah, no, I think it was just a sickness, not anything bad. So no injury that I'm aware of. But we'll see once we kind of find out. I still feel that the defense, especially in the secondary, needs a lot of work getting a fourth. Or, yep, I agree. You can't give up those back-to-back um, those fourth and long situations. That's really been a bugaboo for this team, over and over again this year, um, without a doubt. Um, Maybe so, Ron. Um, it does feel weird. Jinx and Union have been the traditional powerhouses in the Tulsa area this year. Well, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. You could sprinkle in Broken Arrow from time to time, but this side of the state really been um, has really been dominant. But now Bixby's one of the fastest growing towns, community areas in Tulsa, and not only Tulsa but the state of Oklahoma. So they have got it rolling, and they're as big of a powerhouse as um, anyone in the state is. So there's their enrollment's still not quite at the level of a Broken Arrow. I mean, and I continue to say this over and over again. It's To me, it's kind of a crime that Broken Arrow hasn't been as good at at football. I know that they did win a state championship a few years ago, and they've had some pretty good teams. But as just by the sheer fact of the numbers, they should dominate. They clearly have the biggest enrollment on this area. Those of you that aren't familiar with Broken Arrow, their campus looks like a small college. Um, Campus there. They have an incredible stadium and things like that. So it's but yeah, I mean your point's well taken. This side of the state, whether it's Union, Jinx, Bixby, Broken Arrow, Owasso has really dominated the 6A level of high school football for quite some time, and I think part of it's because some of the schools over on on the west side have split. Um, More, the Norman schools have split, the Edmond schools have split, which have made it. The more schools have split, which has watered down the talent a little bit between the different schools, but which is something that you're probably never going to see around here, just because there's not a need right now. So um, Kansas State is dominating this game early on against Oklahoma State. They're up 14-0. They have the ball again. Looks like they have the ball at their own 38, if I'm looking at that right. Unless I'm behind here. Um, no, I'm sorry. That was from the 62-yard run. So a 62-yard run by Deuce Vaughn, and now Kansas State is up 14-0. Really just laying it to Oklahoma State right now. 4 carries for 75 yards for Deuce Vaughn and the touchdown. 4 for 7 for 69 yards and the touchdown for Will Howard. And Oklahoma State's struggling. They only have 37 yards of total offense right now. Um, and here's what I've said about Oklahoma State over the last. And just because of this, if I was an Oklahoma State fan, I would be pretty disappointed because you've got two, and who knows what the rest of the season, but the last 2 or 3 years, Oklahoma State has been good enough to not only win a Big 12 championship, but just get to a spot in the playoffs. But you've got a guy at quarterback that is very untrustworthy. Um, Overall, I mean, he's a guy that's gonna wow you in a lot of ways, but he's a guy that's gonna make turnovers and make um, bad plays, in a lot of different ways. Um, untimely turnovers, ill-advised passes, and just bad decisions just overall. So we'll see how it continues to go, for them. But again, they have appeared to be like I said, and don't get me wrong, he's played um, really, really well um, overall. But he gets into situations where um, he doesn't make great plays. I mean, great decisions all the time. Um, so I see some comments in here, kind of some recruiting. Well, let's go to this question. So I thought the linebackers were pretty pretty decent. I think Deshaun was really good. I think Aguabu made some good plays, but missed a few tackles as well. Stutzman again, agree, hit and miss. Really, really good positioning on that interception. But there's some time. But I thought they all tackled well. I think that's the big thing. They tackled extremely well. Sooner talked to Peyton Bowen's stepmom today. She said she's pretty sure Irish are out and OU. I have no idea. Sooner that's one of the it's a very bizarre recruitment. By any stretch of the imagination. I've heard for months that Peyton Bowen was gonna flip, and it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened to OU. It hasn't happened to A&M. I know he took an official visit to Oregon last weekend. I think a lot of people on social media was all um, up in arms because he was wearing an Oregon, I think, headband for their game Friday night. So your guess is as good as mine on him. I don't even know which way I would lean. I don't know that even the experts know at this point. I mean, the fact that he's still so pro OU um, is positive, but until he signs that dotted line or until he flips, I have no idea which way that one will go. Um, Yeah, I think that one's interesting. I definitely wouldn't expect David Hicks to change his mind. I think there's a lot of dollars floating around that A&M camp, obviously, and I think that's the reason why he's committed to Texas A&M. Now, we'll see. I think he's still planning on taking this visit into Norman for Bedlam. So we'll see if there's anything that could change his mind. But in this in this day and age in recruiting, it's really hard to tell. Um, yeah, he played a lot early on, Ron, in the game. I don't know, he didn't play it as much late, but he played a lot in that game early on for Oklahoma. Um, yeah, like I said, I don't know. I don't have a good feel for him. I mean, I think there's um, a much bigger chance that he flips than stays at Notre Dame. But from what I've heard, um, but I don't I don't know. I don't know at this point. Um, I don't know. I think this one will go down to the wire. Hey, Big T 928. Thanks for being here. Score was close. He's 31-14. Boomer Sooner. Yeah. I actually thought that there was a decent chance that Iowa State would win this game. But the way that our defense was playing, I did not fully believe or give Oklahoma enough credit defensively to win this game. I thought it would be a close game, but I thought Iowa State probably would win like a 27-24, 30-27 game. But defense played much better than we've seen in a while since the non-conference um, games. So we'll see if they can continue that. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate everybody for joining today for our Oklahoma post game live at the Voice of College Football. Make sure that you guys catch me and Mark Rogers weekdays. I'm sorry, every Wednesday weekday, typically 11:30 to 12:30. Sometimes we do have to change that because of schedules. So make sure you hit that notification bell, hit the like and subscribe button so that you know if we make a change and we have to go live at a different time. That is when we go live. Oklahoma wins it today, 27-13 over Iowa State in a game that should give this Oklahoma football team some additional confidence heading into their home game against Baylor with an opportunity to get bowl eligible for Oklahoma this year. So thanks everybody. You guys have a great day. Enjoy your football. Have a wonderful weekend and God bless. Boomer Sooner.